Hello, everyone, and welcome to this evening session of Convincing Cover Letters. This is the second session, formatting do's and don'ts. So, we'll be talking about kind of what to do and what not to do with the cover letter. I'm Heather Rickrell, and I work for UWS Career Services. The first thing we'll start off with is what we'll cover. So, the basic formatting it's a formal business letter, fonts, font size, margins, cover length, cover letter length, closing out the letter, a little bit of a word about PDFs, and sharing cover letter resources. So we'll start with formal business letters. They always have the name block at the top. This should be the same name block that appears on the first page of your resume and on the references page. For the date, you want to use a date closest to when you submit your application. Write out the month and the full year. So, an example would be writing out February 22nd, 2021. The name and address block for the employer comes next, followed by the salutation or the greeting line. So this always is left aligned and always use dear. Don't ever use to whom it may concern. Use dear and then either the company name, dear hiring committee, dear first and last name of a person, that sort of deal. All the paragraphs are left aligned with one space between each paragraph. They are not double spaced and they are not indented. This is what it looks like, kind of the top half of the letter. So your name block at the top, um, a date closest to when you're submitting, the name block of the organization here, and ideally you have a person with a title, and then that line goes here. I would say avoid the Mr. or Mrs. Just because you don't want to make any mistakes there regarding gender. And then again, never use the to whom it may concern. And then it goes into the paragraphs. Don't overlook the details. So these are pretty important. The first one, stick to easy to read fonts like Arial, Calibri, Tahoma, Trebuchet, Lucida Sans, etc. Don't get into the script fonts or anything that's a little more difficult to read. Definitely avoid italics. You want to stick to all black font color and don't go any smaller than size 11 font. And typically, I say use the same font as your resume. Um, Although you could go with size 12 on your cover letter if you want, even if you went on size 11 in your resume. You can play with margins a little bit. 1 inch around is standard. As a last resort, you can take those margins into ½ inch all around, but that's the absolute smallest you should go. Cover letters should never really be more than 1 page in length. The only exception for that is going to be if you've been asked to address, for instance, all of the qualifications and they've got a good list of them, it definitely might go over a page, and that's okay in that instance. For closing off your cover letter, the sign off, which is also known as the complimentary close or the valediction, you always want to use sincerely followed by a comma. I know that people tend to write things like warmly or warm regards. You could write respectfully, that would work too. But sincerely is the most common. Your electronic signature should be on the next line. Typically, that's done with a scanned version of your signature, done on a high quality printer scanner, and you would save it as a picture file, and then you just insert that when you need it. Your typed out name should come next after that, and then an enclosures line. And this is only if you have them, and if you didn't already mention them in the last paragraph of your letter. So, this is what the last part of the cover letter might look like. Thank you for your time and consideration. It's your last paragraph. I look forward to speaking further with you, blah, blah, blah. And then you're going to have some space, sincerely, comma, and then your e signature goes there. And ideally, again, that's a picture file, your typed out name, and then a double space, and then enclosures. Now, what I said about the enclosures was you only include this if you didn't put it in this paragraph. And you're going to list out every enclosure that you have. So it might just be a resume, it might be resumes, transcripts, and I don't know, a writing sample maybe for graduate school. That would be definitely something. Um, for graduate school, it might be resume, transcripts, writing sample, personal statement, something like that. But it actually saves more space to not do this enclosures part and to write in a line up here. I have enclosed my resume, transcripts, and personal statement for your review. That gives you this space to use for the actual meat of your cover letter. When you save your um, cover letter, you want to make sure that you save it and then submit it as a PDF. Um, that's true for resumes and other documents. This makes them really less vulnerable to formatting issues and being changed. And yes, the latter does happen where people will change resumes and cover letters if they're in Word format. I'm not sure why, but some people do mean things. This last bullet is really important. So you need to check your PDFs for corruption before attaching them or sending them in. And the way you do this is you copy and paste a block of text from the PDF version of whatever it is, your resume, your cover letter, to a blank Word document. If it copies into the Word document as text, it's good. It's not corrupted. But if it copies as an image, it is corrupted, and it really needs to be saved as a PDF from your original document. So what happens is as PDFs get sent back and forth, transferred between um, different computers and versions and all of those sorts of things, they can become corrupted. So you definitely want to watch out for that. If you're ready to write your cover letter or continue working on it, there's a couple of different resources here. There's a letters page on the UWS website that talks about resumes, or that talks about writing cover letters. The basic cover letter template, which you saw a piece of um, in one of the first few slides, is there as well. There's cover letters as a branding tool video on the resumes page in the video section. I highly recommend that you watch that. There's also a bunch of information in LinkedIn Learning. You could search cover letter and you'll find many options from taking a 20-minute course to much shorter videos on the topic. Additionally, next week there will be a video or a session in the series about pro tips and what to write in your cover letter. As far as what's next, again, it's the pro tips on writing cover letters. We'll focus on content and context because that's what the cover letter does. It sits with the resume as sort of a package of you for the employer to see um, when they're deciding whether or not to interview. So that's it for this week. I want to thank you for joining me for this session. I hope you learned some things about cover letters, and I will catch you in the next section. Thanks for coming and take care out there.